Good evening, everyone. Looks like we're just about all here. I'm Jonathan Teresi. I work in the Planning and Evaluation Office. My title is the Director of Strategic Planning, and I'll be helping facilitate this breakout session today. My colleague, Robert Ruiz, who's here. Robert, you want to give a wave? He'll be taking notes for us. He's also in the Planning and Evaluation Office as our principal planner. Thank you all for being here tonight. And I think, as everyone said, this work is really important, and the feedback that you provide is going to be really instrumental in helping shape this project. So what we will do tonight, I have several questions. I will project those. We're going to spend about 9 minutes or so providing everyone an opportunity to share their feedback. And as you speak and share orally, I will call your name. If you want to raise your hand, I will call on you so that you can provide your feedback, and Robert will capture that in the notes. If folks have clarifying questions while others are speaking, you can certainly type in the chat and we will work to get to those as well. We really want to pace ourselves so that we can get through each of the questions and provide that opportunity to give feedback on all of the topics. So we will again spend about 9 minutes on each. We will, just for the sake of time, I think we'll hold off on everyone introducing themselves just because we are on a tight time frame here. But we do have 8 folks, I think, here. Let me just make sure everyone is here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. So everyone who's supposed to be here is here. And I think everyone can see the names as well on there. So let's, any clarifying questions on the process before I get started? Heather, clarifying question?
Yes, I opened the chat and it says the chat's turned off for this meeting.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. I wasn't aware that was going to happen. So either way, if you raise your hand, we'll make sure that any clarifying questions as we go through this get answered. So whether you have a comment or feedback to provide or a clarifying question, just certainly raise your hand and we'll call on you. Terry? Oh, you're still on mute, Terry. Still muted.
I had 2 buttons to push and I pushed one. I just noticed that I only have pictures of 6 people and I don't have names of all the people because only 6 photographs are up. I don't know who's missing besides me.
Everyone is here. At the top of your screen, there you'll see like a little person icon. And if you hover over it with the mouse, it should say show participants.
Just go on. I don't care. I just wanted to be able to, if I had a question, I wanted to be able to say direct it to the correct person, but we'll be fine.
Okay, great. Okay, so the first discussion question, I'm going to project my, actually, yeah, let's see if I can do this and still see you all here. Let's do it as a window. I think that will be the best. That's not going to. The first question is the height of the new ACC facility. Are there portions of the building on the diagram in blue that could be adjusted, i.e. built taller, in exchange for more open space on the site? So the first question relates to the height of the proposed Arlington Career Center building. Are there any portions, as you look at that rendering that was provided, are there any that could be adjusted, built taller, in exchange for more open space on the site?
Sorry, I have to just pull up the slides. I didn't have them open yet.
Sure, no problem. Am I saying, is it Carlisle? I'm sorry, I apologize if I'm saying it wrong.
Carlisle.
Carlisle, thank you. Carlisle. Go ahead, I saw your hand.
Yeah, thanks so much. So I would be a huge fan of more green space. So in Arlington Heights, we have such limited green space and it keeps getting built on, and then it gets covered with AstroTurf. And neither one are pro-green Arlington, and both of them are anti-climate change. And so given that becoming a carbon neutral county is super important to us, And given that we want natural green space for our children, I'm very concerned about how we're going to lose most of our MPSA field over there to a building, and it looks like we're getting some astroturf instead of grass. So I live right across the street. I don't mind having a tall building if I can have more green space.
Okay. Thank you, Carlisle. Terry?
I want to concur. I think that Walter Reed is a very wide street, and I think having a 6 or 7 story building across at this site and having more open space is a really good idea. I like it lowering down on the one end is perfectly fine, but I think our last meeting we thought that 7 was going to be acceptable, and I think it still is.
Chris?
Thanks. Yeah, I definitely support a greater height in if we can get more open space out of it. I think I'm supportive of about 8 stories at a maximum, and I think that highest area should be either centered around the main entrance there across from 8th Street or on the south end of the building. I think we should avoid going higher than 5 stories. They're adjacent to the single-family homes to the north of the site across 7th Street.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Robert, the note taker. Would you mind repeating those streets that you mentioned where you are in favor of taller massing?
Yeah, I would prefer the massing to be adjacent to the main entrance, which I understand to be directly across from South 8th Street, or I would prefer the massing to be on the south end of the building. I think we should keep the height to 5 stories or below on the north end of the building.
North end of the building being the lower.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, so.
Rosa?
Yeah, so I agree. I think we should be maximizing the height. What that height is, I think should also be determined by the, movement of the students within the building and being able to get to their classes from one end to the other. I know that at the previous BLPCs, and other, types of discussions, some of that also relates to, the elevator location for students that, need to use the elevators to move between floors for accessibility purposes. And then, yeah, I agree, maximizing green space, and then maximizing flexibility on the site, for future, whatever happens. And then I would say that I appreciate the step down towards, towards the north. I don't know if I feel it needs to step back. Like right now, the massing also steps back from Walter Reed at that corner. And then I like the terraces that are shown on the south side of the building, but I'm not sure they're necessary in terms of the massing, if we were to try to make a taller building. That's it.
Thank you, Rosa. Polly?
Hi, thanks. I'm going to just kind of build off of Rosa's comments a little bit. I'm all for massing and green space, but I do want to be considerate of the student movement. Going up 4 flights, 5 flights of stairs with a heavy backpack, even for students who don't have the need for any accessibility support is significant, especially given the time they have between classes. And I think we just need to be thoughtful about the use of this building and the fact that unlike our office buildings that are high, these students will not be able to use elevators on a regular ongoing basis.
Thank you. I'm going to let Jeff jump in here for a second, and then Heather, I'll be right with you next.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, just with regard to Polly's last comment, as far as elevators go, for instance, at the Heights building, students are permitted to use the elevators. We have an open access policy that we've gone to with our schools, so that is not as much of an issue. With regard to height, the one thing that will limit our height really is the high-rise code. We are limited to probably 6 stories without going to the high-rise code, and that adds a lot of fire suppression and other issues that add a lot of expense to the construction. Now, from the we are not planning to go into the ground because of the cost of that. For instance, the Heights building is about seven stories, but it goes into the ground, and that gives us that additional height. But we are open to going as high as we can and working with that. But I just wanted to say, you know, I agree with you. I'd love to go as high as possible, but we can make the elevators work. That's not a problem with our students, because we want the buildings to be fully accessible, and you can't have to go to the office to ask for a pass to use the elevator, to keep it open and free moving. So that's all I wanted to say, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jeff. Heather?
Hi, I actually have a student who goes to the Heights building. So as a parent, I just have a few perspectives on that. One, I know that this fall there's been some injuries on the stairs during passing time because the stairs are very steep. So, and kids are moving fast with backpacks, as Polly mentioned. And although they can access the elevators, they are discouraged from using them. So, I think there are things to think about when you're going up to 7 or 8 stories. I mean, even 6, it's something to consider for the students. Although I do support the idea of more urban schools, I really want everyone to focus on the safety of the students in those spaces, because I mean, I've known some kids who've slipped and fallen this year, and that's always scary for the parents and for the kids themselves, especially during the high traffic periods where kids are changing spaces. And the one thing I like about the Heights building a lot, which I think having some terrace spaces for the students, especially now when we think about having things like outdoor lunches and things like that available, would be a really good, like if you can step the building in some way to have some terraces, I think that would be helpful to the student life as well.
Okay, we have about 30 seconds, so I'm going to take Carlisle and Terry for the last comments on this question. Carlisle?
I'm sorry, I forgot to lower my hand.
Oh, no worries. Terry?
Oh, I can only have 30 seconds. That's perfect. I think we have to remember how far in advance how long it is till this building is going to be there. I really think by, 10 years from now, heavy backpacks are probably going to be a thing of the past. I know my grandson uses a tablet, and that's what he carries from class to class. And I think if we're looking, when this building is going to be operated, it is going to be a very different environment than it is right now. And we have to keep remembering that Arlington's not going to get any bigger. So if there's any way to go higher, even if that requires some code changes, I think that's important.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you all. Moving on to the next question, the placement of the parking structure. There's 2 parts to this, so we'll kind of spend 4 minutes on each. First part, looking at the parking garage placement on 9th Street, what works? What are the challenges? Any other concerns you have regarding the placement of the garage? Heather? Oh, you're muted. Sorry, Heather.
My only concern is if you're coming out, I feel like there needs to be a light to help the traffic get back onto Walter Reed. So it's something to consider with the traffic flow.
Thank you. Michelle?
I appreciate where the entrance is, thinking about the amount of traffic that we have right now on Highland. And I think the entrance is really good. The one question that I have, which is not probably part of this conversation, but if this is, we have the auto mechanics program, and I'm not clear about whether there's going to be, whether they will be using that space as well for the cars that they have for that program, or whether that's going to be in a different area. But that was one of the questions that I had as I was looking at it.
Thank you. Chris?
Thanks. Yeah, assuming an above ground garage for cost reasons, which I can understand that reasoning. I think this is the best possible placement for it. To put an above ground garage basically directly across from an existing ugly above ground garage is certainly appropriate. My only real concern is this really shifts the traffic pattern on the site to put a lot more cars on 9th Street. And 9th Street is one of our Columbia Pike bike boulevards. It's supposed to be a safe, quiet place for bikes to move east-west, given that we do not have any bike facilities on Columbia Pike. So I really think if this is the direction that we go, putting this garage entrance directly onto 9th, that probably for this block, we actually need some real bike facilities so that bikes have a safe place to be around that increased car traffic that would be brought to 9th by having this large 400 car garage access directly on 9th. And I will just mention to the previous person's point that the aforementioned County Walter Reed Drive project does plan to build a traffic signal at the corner of Walter Reed and 9th Street, which would aid people getting onto and off of Walter Reed Drive from 9th Street from a car perspective, and also make it easier to cross Walter Reed on a bike or as a pedestrian there at 9th Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Hi,
Rosa.
this is Robert. I have just asking for some clarification on the someone mentioned the mechanical program, and just to if you could elaborate a little bit more on that for as I'm taking notes.
Yeah, the auto mechanics collision program, right now they have the red area that is supposed to go away. Part of that is a parking lot where they park cars that they're working on, and so that they can drive them into the classroom and out of the classroom. And so the placement of that classroom, how people will be able to move cars into and out of that classroom is a question I had. So as I was looking at this, I assumed they would be placing the cars in that parking lot, which means that people would be driving in and out of that parking lot during the day for that class. So that was one concern that I had about how that was going to be used. But I think that obviously the larger concern is the traffic for people who are commuting to and from the school in the day, because that's going to be a larger amount of cars.
Thank you. Rosa?
Yeah, so my thoughts, I mean, yes, I think obviously 9th is the right place for the parking garage, period. That's easy. I do think that, my concerns for traffic are less related to the parking garage and more to, buses and drop off for parents. I feel like the ability to go in and out of the parking garage is going to be, yes, it does add some more traffic, a lot more traffic, I guess, on 9th. But it's kind of, you're going to the parking garage and then you're coming from the parking garage. So I think it's kind of easy in and out. My thought, though, is whether or not should the parking garage swing so that it's parallel to the portion of the career center that stays. I mean, it's nice to, I guess, have it against and parallel to the street. But then it creates this really nasty space between a parking garage and an existing building that looks like it would be unpleasant, potentially unsafe. Not sure what would happen in that, area, that wedge that's there right now. Whereas if you swing the parking garage so that it was parallel to the career center building, then that gives you a little bit more green space in front of the parking garage. But I'm not sure that that green space is necessary or pleasant, because it's now between essentially two parking garages, because there's a garage on the other side too. So, but I just didn't like the orientation of it right now with the wedge between it and the existing building. And, I do think that'll be a nasty place.
Thank you, Rosa.
Potentially.
Polly?
Mine's more of a clarification question. Is the second phase of the project's intent to deconstruct the existing career center building, and will that convert to green space in the final plan? Is that the current intent of that space, or is it converting to something else? It's just not clear, and if I've missed it, I did watch the video and tried to do my homework properly, but I might have missed that, and I apologize.
I think that's all TBD, Polly. I don't think there hasn't been any just definitive decisions on that or the MPSA building. I think that those are all details that will be worked out later this spring on that. For our final 2 minutes, the second part, I think a lot of this, I think people already touched upon, but are there any other suggestions that staff should consider when refining the parking structure? So basically anything else you'd like to add in regards to the structure? About 2 minutes. Terry, we haven't heard from you yet on this, Terry.
Oh, actually, I'm skipping both ways. I think it's really important that when we do the calculations on how many parking spaces are required here, that we have to think about what we don't know is going to be built. Plus, we have to make sure that the people from the auto repair career center program have space. So you will probably have to have higher parking than people will find green enough for them. But if we want those students to be able to have places to put those cars, that must be put in the calculation number.
Thank you. Polly?
Yeah, I was going to go beyond that to question if we were considering classroom space or storage and facility space for the auto mechanic program in the garage itself. So that would be a question I ask. And then, you know, I'm always cautious and just want to kind of make sure that we're thinking about keeping that garage as open as possible to keep it as safe as possible.
Thank you. And last comment, Rosa?
Oh,
Was that a
sorry.
hand?
Yeah, I must have accidentally hit that. I don't actually have a comment. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. Great feedback. Next question is this title is Strengths and Concerns with the Preliminary Site Plan. Identify any additional strengths and concerns with the preliminary site plan that are not addressed in the responses to questions 2 or 3. I'll read it one more time. Identify any additional strengths and concerns with the preliminary site plan that are not addressed in the responses to questions 2 or 3. Heather, please.
I was concerned about how it's hiding the entrance to the Montessori school. That it just doesn't seem very, and I don't know if the entrance, I know we're not talking about other buildings, but I don't know if the entrance to the Montessori school is moving, but the getting to the Montessori school, if you're coming from, I guess it's the east, you're going to have to walk all the way around the school building. And I feel like that's a piece that's missing, is that you just don't have easy access to that school anymore for walkers.
And when you say hiding the entrance to Montessori, do you mean the garage or the massing for the proposed building?
I think the school building, because the entrance, as I recall, for the Montessori building faces what is currently the parking lot and what will be the field. So if you're coming from Walter Reed, it will be hidden from Walter Reed and not easy to access.
Okay. Terry, please.
I didn't put my hand down. I apologize.
No worries. Rosa?
Yeah, so to add on to what was just said, it does seem like, again, going back to my comment originally about, I'm not sure why we need to step back at the corner of Walter Reed and 7th. But it seems like if you pull that portion of the building and keep it aligned with Walter Reed, that would allow a little bit more green space between, say, the playground and the building, and a walk path there, so that walkers, if the new building is kind of in the way, at least there's a nice path all the way around the building. to get, to access it. But I just don't really see the point of stepping the building back at that corner the way it's done.
Okay. Carlisle?
Thanks. I'd like to step back because I live across the street from there, but moving it back entirely so we have more green space, I think would be awesome. I assume you guys are taking into consideration just how many schools Arlington Heights supports, and just it's heavy. Arlington Heights has a heavy load of the schools as compared to other neighborhoods. And so the more you can give us green space, the more you can give us, you can be environmentally conscious in doing this, the better for the neighborhood. So I think as we think about equity in Arlington and what goes on in the north versus the south, very much appreciated that you give us as much green space as you can. Grass, not AstroTurf.
Yeah, I know Robert will be noting that. Any other additional comments? The last two questions we'll focus on are transportation oriented, but like multimodal pieces, but any other feedback on the site plan with regards to the structures and buildings? Okay, Michelle.
Hi, I'm speaking for some high school students who asked me to speak about the terraces and appreciating the terraces. They're very interested in using, we have quite a few kids who are interested in urban agriculture and use of green spaces in buildings or on buildings. And so those terraces they see as really promising. So I just wanted to make sure that we spoke about that.
Great. Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I'm just really supportive of the location of the main entrance of this building. We've been concerned for a long time about, how is this going to look and interact with the rest of the neighborhood and sit on the site. And I just think that that main entrance on Walter Reed, lining right up with 8th Street there like it does, is just the best that we can do. And I'm glad it's there, and I just hope it stays there.
Thank you. All right.
I agree.
Put an extra plus sign next to that feedback. Shifting on to question 4 now. The transportation project goals for the safety of students, the right sizing, the career transportation infrastructure, and minimizing the traffic impacts. These are the 3 goals for the transportation. Are these the right goals for multimodal transportation on the site? If not, what should be added or adjusted? So again, the 3 goals: safety of students, right sizing the career center transportation infrastructure, minimizing traffic impacts. Based on that, are these the right goals for multimodal transportation? If not, what should be added or adjusted? Carla?
I think those are the right goals, and just learning from the Fleet experience where we don't have enough parking spaces for teachers and therefore people don't want to teach at the school. And so Fleet is really suffering from a lack of adequate parking. Let's not do the same thing here, since we do want to attract quality teachers to these schools.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, thanks. Yes, I think those are the right goals, though I had to go actually look at the slide to decide that I agreed, because I feel like those headlines leave a little bit wanting. But when you actually dig into the bullet points underneath them, yes, we are successfully capturing what we need to be on this site. Thank you. Goal-wise.
Good. Rosa?
Yeah, so I agree with goals as well. I think those are the primary goals. I think the only thing kind of missing is the access to the library. So assumedly people can park in the garage as well for that. If people are doing drop off, right now I know a lot of the ability to kind of come into the site for drop off for Montessori or for, I guess, the Career Center is closed to cars, so parents do drop off on the major streets. They're not allowed to kind of come into the site because that's for buses only, which is fine. but I'm just also trying to understand how that works then for the library in this kind of situation. You know, if you were doing literal drop off of books at the library right now, you can do a drive-by and kind of just jump out and put your books in the slot. I don't know how that works in the future, and whether or not there's sufficient parking for that short term, those people to kind of quickly, you know, drop books off at the library or pick something up without having to park in the garage and walk all the way around, or, you know, but that's all. So that was just my add a little goal related to the library.
Thank you. Any other feedback around the goals? Anything that should be added or adjusted? Okay, we can kind of shift, I think, onto the next question then. And if people have additional thoughts, we do have time to go back to that. But the fifth question is input on the Career Center campus transportation concerns and issues. What additional transportation issues or concerns need to be addressed? This would be anything outside of the points in the transportation slides 14 to 18. So I'll give people a minute. If you wanted to pull up those slides from the website, slides 14 to 18 address some points and issues. Is there anything else, any other issues or concerns that need to be addressed outside of what's already mentioned on those transportation slides 14 to 18?
I can start since I was looking at those already while everybody else looks. I guess I wanted to say, I appreciate that they ran the new numbers and looked at what Montessori is doing to that area, because it's definitely not 2019 traffic patterns. But it doesn't look like on slide 14 in terms of, I mean, yeah, I think they've recognized everything that's going on. So I think if you can fix those things, it's going to work great. But it says takeaways for concept design on slide 18, and they sort of list these three things. And I don't necessarily see they have, you know, the bullet number 2 is develop clear and separate bus and student pickup, drop off locations, et cetera. And I think that's fine, but I think one of the issues that they talk about in their slides, which is an issue, is the way the buses come back out onto Highland, and the queuing of the Montessori, at least as a Montessori drop-off parent, the queuing of the Montessori, there's just not room on that street to allow for the buses to kind of turn out of there and have cars in queuing. Definitely barely have room for 2-lane traffic there with the parked cars. So I don't see that where they said on that slide 18 that these are the things that we need to address. That kind of cross point is definitely needs to be solved. You know, so yeah, buses can have their own way to act, you know, a different drop-off point than the parents. But if those two, you know, if those two paths cross, that's a problem. That's the problem that needs to be solved just as much as, you know, too many people at a single door. And so I would say add that to the concept of trying to fix that. And a potential which would not make people in the neighborhood happy, but it seems like maybe having Highland be like one way, or you lose the extra lanes of parking. I don't know. I don't know how to fix it to get that to work, but something has to happen to allow more room for those vehicles to be on Highland.
Thank you, Rosa. Chris?
Thanks. Yeah. So I have several things here. Transportation Commission. Hi. This is not surprising that this is my question. So my first is I want to reiterate the concerns I spoke to earlier about the additional traffic on 9th due to the location of the parking garage, and how I think we probably need some actual protected bike lanes on this block of 9th Street to keep students traveling through this area safe, given the additional car traffic that we will be bringing to 9th. Second, I want to kind of piggyback on the earlier comments about how this building how the new Career Center building kind of closes off or hides the Montessori building, specifically from a pedestrian circulation standpoint. If you're walking to the Montessori building from the east, I feel like this building, without some careful design, sort of makes you have to go the long way around in order to get to school, rather than having the sort of nice direct path that you have currently. So I think pedestrian circulation through this sort of big 4-block campus really needs some thought, especially kind of in the middle there from an east-west perspective. And then I did want to also associate myself with the previous commenter's remarks about Highland. This is a big site, and we've got a lot of things going on with it, right? We're trying to deal with Montessori pickup and drop off, with Career Center pickup and drop off, with staff going to the parking garage, all that sort of thing. And I feel like the circulation that I'm seeing in this preliminary site plan isn't really using Walter Reed Drive to its fullest. We're putting a lot of circulation on Highland, which is kind of a pretty small neighborhood street, and we're using that parking on both sides of Highland, which makes it pretty narrow for cars. So I think we may need to give some more thought to site circulation and whether buses can come in on Highland but then exit on Walter Reed or something like that, in order to take some of that traffic pressure off of Highland. Because in those tight little 10 or 15 minute windows of drop off and pickup during the school day, between Montessori pickup and drop off, Career Center pickup and drop off, and I believe there's a hub stop happening at the Montessori for people who are going to other choice programs, that, like, for instance, 7th and Highland is getting gets pretty crazy at certain times of the day right now already, without these additional seats at the Career Center. So those are my thoughts currently on transportation on the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Carlisle?
Just two separate comments. One is we have had some bad pedestrian hits by cars on Walter Reed. I'm glad that there'll be a stoplight on 9th and Walter Reed. I think that'll help. Also, Irving and 7th is going to get more pressure. It's currently not a 4-way stop. And so that should be considered if you're going to have a lot more traffic coming through. As a completely separate point, I should have brought it up earlier, but it's just occurring to me as you're talking about walking around the Montessori school. Up to this point, there's been some conscientious effort to keep the elementary school kids and the high school kids separate. In fact, the explanation to us about why there's that fenced off area it was for that purpose. And I wonder here, it looks like there's no way you're going to separate the elementary school kids and the high school kids. I don't know if that's of any concern, but it's there. And then that leads to just a heads up that you're probably aware that the last time this came up under the previous superintendent, this was a very opaque process, and certainly the Arlington Heights and the Henry community felt very betrayed by APS for having these kinds of consultations and then coming up with a solution that no one expected. And so I appreciate what I perceive to be the openness and the transparency that's happening in this process. And hope that the final decision will reflect indeed the input we're providing. So 3 completely unrelated pieces.
It's great feedback, though. Thank you. We captured that. Any other on transportation concerns and issues? Terry?
Once again, I'm picking up on the bike piece. I don't know at all where you're planning on parking bikes on this space, which will create, we hope, a lot of people bike riding, but I think that needs to be taken into consideration. I also think having the entrance where I like it on Walter Reed makes everybody, from the bus when you get off, are you going to have a separate entrance on the back, which is not the main entrance? I think you have to think about how people really are going to be able to get in and out of this building with the particular transportation plan. That's the parking garage is far away, the buses are on the wrong side, and I don't know where bikes are going.
Thank you. Any others? Since we're about 5 minutes ahead of time, what I'll do is, just because I know as we go through these discussions, other ideas, let's just kind of go back from the top. I'll just give people a minute just because we have 5 minutes and want to really maximize our time together. I'm going to go back to question 1 and just kind of reread the prompt and see if there's any other comments. We'll go through the previous 5 questions.
And Jonathan, I can also project the notes I've been taking. So just as because as part of this process, we also have to pick, 2 or 3 sort of feedback that we want to highlight when we convene with the rest of the group. And you can also look over my shoulder and make sure that I took appropriate notes for your comments. So I'll just project my screen.
Perfect. And I'll read the prompts, and if we want to build onto that a little bit more and then kind of highlight the big points from each of the questions. That sounds great. All right. So question 1, you can see there, are there portions of the building in blue that could be adjusted in exchange for more open space? You can see the current notes that Robert has captured and feedback. I'll pause and just look for hands to see if anyone wants to build onto that or add anything, if we should add anything additional for 1A. Okay, Rosa?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, my issue with the step back is not the fact that the building steps down, it's that it pulls away from Walter Reed. And I don't have an issue with it staying away from 7th. It's just, I felt it should be, I didn't understand the pushback, the stepping back off of Walter Reed.
And sorry, you're referring to that 3rd bullet point?
Yep, that's the 3rd point. Yep, I just, and yeah.
Okay, and if I were to, but not sure about the step back on the
Yeah,
northern
so just
end.
say, yeah, step back, right. So not sure about the step back away from just add away from Walter Reed behind the board back. Yeah, you can keep the on the northern end, but. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Michelle?
I was just going to add to that first bullet that some members accepted the tall building, but some were concerned about what that meant for flow for students. So I think we need to capture that there were concerns.
Carla?
I'd love to have more context with that first bullet with the green space. I'd like to reemphasize the interest in having open grass, and that it's a climate change issue, and it's the fact that Arlington Heights has such little green space, and we're getting more and more astroturf in the little green space we have. So I'd like to. I don't want people to pass over that green space comment too quickly. I do want them to understand why it's so important.
I think you could say natural green space.
For more natural green space, and the issue is climate change, and the interest is having our children have access to natural green space, which is just there's not a lot of it here in this community.
Maybe as a sub bullet, Robert, to that first one, or yeah, down there, either or.
Thanks.
No problem. Thank you.
It's both like children needing the access and a climate change. They're 2 different issues. They're related, but just for children's health, they need access to natural green space. So 2 separate issues. Thanks.
Thank you.
Part B, just kind of looking there, is there any other comments or feedback that people would like to add? Anything that's missing, or as we go through this, you've had another idea or perspective you'd like to have captured? Okay, let's move on to number 2. Looking at the parking garage placement on 9th Street, what works? What are the challenges? Other concerns? You can see the current bullets that Robert's captured from your feedback. Is there any additional pieces here?
I think we could add here the thing about we want to make sure that there's room for the cars from the, I don't know what that maintenance mechanical repair program is called, but I think that's where we could put a bullet about making sure there's parking in the garage for those students' cars they're working on.
Okay, I'll add it over here then. So let's see, what did I, just a second.
Auto mechanics, I think it's called.
They have the two. I know there's the two. There's the auto body where they're doing more of the body work, and then
Yeah.
the mechanic shop as well.
Well, we can put auto mechanics / body or something. Shop.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Carla, did you want to add on to here?
Yes, I thought people brought up some really important points about safety. And so under A, that third point says doesn't like the wedge. I thought the point that I think is a point very well made,
Yeah.
safety-wise, that the wedge could attract all sorts of who knows what's going on. And also that the parking structure itself can attract that. We do have a certain amount of who knows what's going on 9th and on Columbia Pike. And I certainly don't want to attract it closer to our school spaces.
Thank you.
And maybe explain why it's a safety issue, the like folks doing things they're not supposed to be doing.
And the intention there, right, was
Yeah.
to, not concrete walls around but an open structure that you can see through where there's visibility for safety, and that visibility supports a prevention aspect.
And so the concern is that it could attract crime.
Unsavory behavior.
Bad behavior.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments before we go down to number 3? Okay, moving on to number 3. Let's review that. Strengths and concerns with the preliminary site plan. You can see the 5 bullets there. If we wanted to add on to any of this, any additional thoughts or revisions, enhancements?
I didn't, come to think of it now, I don't see a separate space for the playground for the, daycare program for the students that the high school students can put their children in. And I don't see space for the animal care program that exists. Maybe that's going away. But I know they said the daycare was going to continue.
I'll look at the ed specs real quick to see if the animal was staying. I was kind of thinking it was gone or going away, but let me look.
Robert, next to daycare in parentheses, you can put teen parenting program.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I know that one was is staying.
Originally, it was at the end of that gray block up against Highland Street.
Yeah, but that would be a long way from the new school. I don't know.
Okay. And the animal sciences and vet tech was still there. I just was thinking that there was discussion that the larger animals are not going to be part of the new program. But
Okay. I guess it
So-
will animal tech have outside space?
Thanks.
Thank you. Moving on to number 4. Transportation project goals. Anything additional there?
yeah, and my comment on the library was just trying to, the quick drop off point, so that people don't just double park on Walter Reed. So I think that was my my point, because no one's going to park in the garage if they're literally just going to run and drop off a book. So we will get double parkers.
You could ask in the transportation that we have like 15-minute parking spaces along the street, like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, there are workarounds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
And 5.
I think you might have want to put on there temporary spaces on Walter Reed or 9th Street so that people know it's right by the entrance of the library. I think probably on Walter Reed.
Mm-hmm.
Should we put after temporary spaces / short-term parking? Just in case.
Yes, that would, yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. And last.
I was wondering if they should reconsider having a hub stop, given all of the school buildings on that space. That maybe find a different location for the hub stop to move some of the traffic out.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
I didn't know there was a hub stop there, but there's one at my elementary school, and I know it creates lots of traffic.
Okay, so phrase it if there is a
There
hub
is
stop.
though.
There is one
Oh.
here.
Yeah, there is definitely one.
Okay, should
I think-
locational hub stop be reconsidered?
Yeah, to improve or decrease traffic flow.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Because I know some people drive their kids to the hub stop because the hub stop is far.
I think at site, just qualify, Robert, that at this site, so it's not, because there is hub stops throughout the county for the Career Center, but we're talking specifically about the hub stop at this site.
Okay,
Right,
good
using
point.
the Career Center as a hub stop.
Yes.
So you're saying, so using,
Is a problem.
Should be reconsidered. Using it as a hub stop should be reconsidered, given all of the things that are going on this one site already.
okay, thank you.
One more thing to consider for people walking is I'm on the other side of Arlington Boulevard. Crossing Arlington Boulevard at Fillmore / Walter Reed is dicey at best. And I know that's a state Commonwealth issue, but going all the way to the bridge that's close to Jefferson is probably not feasible if kids are going to be walking. Probably won't do it if they're going to be walking. So better crossing for Arlington Boulevard should also be considered or advocated for.
Now the big lift. In our final 5 minutes, we need to synthesize all of this great feedback into 3.
Wait, I have hope. I had
Sorry.
one point here.
Yes.
Just a comment on the hub stop. Is they're supposed to be in the neighborhood at a school or at a park? Arlington Heights doesn't have any other options because the other option is Fleet and TJ, and there are no parks. It's at TJ. So that's going to be tricky. This is where the pressure on Arlington Heights is really emphasized. You can see how bad it is. But on the point that starts glad about 9th and Walter Reed, there's a second sentence there. As proposed, it looks like it'll be difficult to separate elementary students and secondary students. That's not the same point. That should probably go somewhere else in the notes. It was a comment I made totally out of in the wrong place.
Not
so
a
that
problem.
comment should definitely should cut and paste. Put that one. That one should go. I don't know, on the site plan or something.
Yeah, question 3. I think that
Probably at number 3.
Yeah.
Strength and concerns with the site plan. Yeah.
Thanks.
Not a problem.
So when they're reporting out to the group, we need to synthesize and share our 3 high-level, maybe at the bottom, Robert, our 3 kind of big takeaways we want to share back with the group from all these questions. So I'll kind of open it up and maybe just kind of share, not all 3, but just one point that you think is important that you'd like for our group to report out to the larger group of all the questions and all the content here.
Yeah, or I could also highlight them as well if there's like points that are already drafted.
I mean, I think we could say we're open to massing, but we want to consider the impact of that on student health and safety.
Okay. Rosa?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, okay, I'm unmuted. I was just gonna say that I agree. I think we're pretty generally happy with the massing, happy with the garage, but I feel like the biggest issue is the transportation and the site use, and it has to be studied holistically and overlaid with the building entrances. And I mean, I think, all of the things that we talk about are like these little individual things, but it's all one solution has to be looked at, because you could solve the buses, but then have pedestrians going all over the place. So you could solve the pedestrians, but then, so I just think that, and if you get too far ahead with the massing, then it's going to force you to have, like you suddenly have an entrance in the wrong location, or, I don't know. So it's just, and seeing the cross paths. I think that's the other thing, because I think even in the BLPC, when they presented those things to us, a lot of times it's, well, here's how the buses do their drop off. Here's how the parents do their drop off. Here's how this happens. And it's not like one big map that shows all of them crossing each other. And that needs to be shown and thought about.
I think it's misleading just to say open to massing. I think we are open to greater height. I mean, it's actually massing sounds like you're making the building wider, not taller.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, good point.
I think to the second bullet, the biggest issue is beyond transportation. It's movement and flow.
Yeah, agreed. Good point.
Across all, the cross uses across all uses of the site, right? So, and especially including transportation, and the impact on neighborhood and traffic flows too. But it's not just the cars; it's the walking, right? The access to the access to the Montessori school, the flow for the library, etc.
Should we qualify multimodal transportation? So we're thinking about walkers, bus riders, cars, all means transportation.
But it's not just getting. Yeah. Multimodal is correct, but it's not just to the site; it's on the site and how that movement.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah, it's definitely both.
To the site and within the site.
I think in the sites, yeah.
Yeah, and definitely within the site hasn't been, I think, thought about at all. Oh, I mean, it's obviously early, but you know, because you put everybody in a garage now that's at the south and they've got to get to the buildings. You know, the teachers have to get to their buildings. And if, you know, they're arriving when, you know, compared to when the buses arrive and
Much earlier.
So should I do away with that second portion, especially including transportation?
No.
I think you can make two, I think you
Keep it
could
up.
make 2 bullets. I think there could be one about, and make those into 2 bullets, and that would be our 3 bullets, I think.
Oh, wait, but I want to say something about green space.
Well, can we put that up on the massing on in the taller buildings, the first one?
I think the
Pretty
staff
good.
people are gone. They got pulled back.
No,
Sure.
no, we're talking among ourselves. Hey, Heather, it's nice to see you when I'm not in my jogging outfit. I see you every
Yes, it is
day.
nice to see you too.
Now we know each other. That's
Yes.
so awesome. See you tomorrow morning.
Yes, absolutely.
Actually, with the snow day, I might not, but the right one.
Yeah, me neither. But maybe Friday.
Maybe Friday we'll see each other. That's great.
Polly,
Yeah.
did your daughter choose a college yet?